Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to this episode of The Conversation. I am Rashmi Bora, a freelance writer from the suburbs of Atlanta. You may be surprised seeing me doing the intro instead of Dr. Isma. But those of you who saw our chat last September after the release of his novel Bittersweet Memories of Last Spring perhaps know what we have in store. The good news is that the sequel is out, and once again, we are doing a reverse chat where the host becomes the guest. And I am extremely thrilled, super excited to interview Dr. Isma, talk about his new novel, Last Spring Was Bittersweet. So, congratulations, Dr. Isma, and welcome to the show.
You.
So tell me, how do you feel after the release of this novel? Because I have seen on Twitter, so many of your readers have been asking the question, over the last few months, when is the sequel going to be out? So how does it feel once that it is finally out?
It feels like, when you have a baby or expecting,
Uh-huh.
it's the same feeling when the baby is finally delivered. And the reception seems to be pretty encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my initial reaction, when the book was released. And of course, as writers, there's always an element of anxiety every
Right.
time you have a project is out for the whole world to see it. There's always that too. In other words, it's a bittersweet feeling, just like the title of the book.
It's a beautiful comparison that you made. And as you know, I read the book. I read it a couple of times already.
Wow.
But would you give us a brief synopsis? Because I don't want to summarize it and spoil it for our viewers. So, so that we can get started, could you please give us a brief, synopsis of the book?
Remember, book one ends with a cliffhanger where Yrvin's girlfriend was actually sent to Europe, to France, because of a pregnancy. And so, that also has wrecked the relationship between the two, although they try very hard to maintain it. Uh, you know, some circumstances beyond their control prevented them, and then as years go by, just like everyone else in life. So Yrvin struggles, to move beyond this relationship. He struggled, but unfortunately, he could not really overcome his deep-rooted feelings that he bores in his heart for this beautiful young lady. So, and but this is the backdrop of the story. Remember now, he graduated in book one. So this is a natural process. I went through it. You probably have gone through it too. So after graduation, so we expect this is the time now to put in task what you have learned in school. And then he realized immediately it wasn't that easy. He was facing the real world. So this was this is how the story unfolds. So we don't want to give up the plot. So I'm just going to start right here. So it's a beautiful, transition from book one to book two.
Right. After I read the first book, I think I mentioned that in our last chat last year that I felt I was very much a part of the world of the protagonist. He seems absolutely so real. I mentioned last time as though he's someone who lives in the neighborhood. And the magic still continues in book two. And you mentioned that the book was inspired by events in your life, inspired by the events. Now, I understand that you have the thoughts running in your mind, but to weave them together in the form of a story and write a book it's a big task.
Exactly.
And everything's so real. So I just want to ask you, what are your techniques of writing, right? Do you do a daily journaling of events in your life that you go back, and refresh everything? Like, what is your technique of writing? Because it is so realistic. And one major reason why I loved both your books is that, my favorite genre is realistic fiction, and that is what you're doing. So the books have a special appeal for me. So, what are your techniques? Can you please educate our viewers?
I'm not sure if I can educate the audience, but
Uh-huh.
I can simply share my
Correct.
techniques with fellow writers and also readers out there. I discipline myself when writing.
Mm-hmm.
What I do early in the morning, I process my thought and then jot down what is going to be the writing of the day, picking
Okay.
up from the day before.
Okay.
That's one thing. I draw from my own personal experiences. Remember, as you know, that fiction reflects reality. So it wasn't too difficult for me uh, writing the lines that have to do with his moving from a university student to a professional,
Okay.
because I myself graduated with a degree in computer science. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't too difficult for me to to put to light or to so vividly those descriptions. Once I jot down the story, so I get the protagonist into the play, I let the protagonist, people won't believe me, dictates exactly in my mind what has to happen. For example, if you remember that the big party uh,
Right.
at the Las Olas Boulevard, the high end, where the
Mm-hmm.
rich and famous, where he finds himself completely out of place. So I've been to events like this, and I see how people who are extremely rich, how they behave, and high end gatherings like this, the feelings, the emotions, and try to make to build connections and things. So I created a scenario which is in fact a replica of what has been seen before. What I do, I just take that, the war description, and I embellish it with novelistic prose. So nothing in terms of my writing is ever completely finished. In fact, uh, people sometimes they say that you are a perfectionist, but I think that's what we are as writers, because perfection, and especially in creative writing, is a relative term.
I
So
think
always
you are
try
a
to embellish.
perfectionist. You seem to me a perfectionist because as I read the book, it's a very natural flow. Like, you feel you're immersed in the world of the protagonist. And, that is the greatest, I think, attraction. You feel like reading the book on and on. Like, I have described your book in my own language, and I feel that it is a beautiful piece of fabric, tenderly woven with the strands of realism. That's what I feel is your book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we go through book one and book two, and the catchword here is bittersweet because both books, the first one is Bittersweet Memories of Last Spring, the second book is Last Spring Was Bittersweet. So, what made you go for that word in particular?
It's pretty simple because the story continues.
Uh huh.
It's just a continuation of where we actually left in book
Right.
one. So because the story is not ended, and the protagonist is the one who tells the story, so I feel it was very important that I keep that. Actually, it's basically the same title. Bittersweet Memories of Last Spring, and Last Spring Was Bittersweet. We
Right.
still remain within the framework of memories. So, I remember one of my editors when I was trying to change the title
Okay.
of book two. And then the editor said, no, you can't do that. It's best to keep it in the same framework. And they came up with something.
Right.
No. But I said, well, how about last spring was bittersweet?
Okay.
It's just the same thing as Bittersweet Memories of Last Spring.
Right.
So that's how I came up with this, with the title.
Okay, thank you. Okay, your book revolves around, mainly two areas: the immigrant struggle and the quest for love. But as I read the book, I see that there are other themes too that are equally important. And what struck me and what I love were two angles: friendship and family. You mentioned a friend, Pedro, uh, you know, who is Irvin's friend throughout, through thick and thin. And then we come to his sister, Sister Nana, who plays such an important role in his life. And if we remove her from the equation, the story is lost, because she's the one, who encourages him that you need to go for higher studies, you need to establish yourself. And she's again the one who tells him that you should fight for your love. So, do you really want intentionally to bring the family angle into the novel? Because, as I said, that kind of elevates the story to a different level, rather than being just an immigrant struggle or a tale of love.
Yes, I have to say that I draw a lot from my family experiences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The people, who supported me when I came to the United States.
Correct.
At a very young age. And the absence of my parents, my mom and dad.
Right.
So, and also the benefit of having a sister who plays that role for me. So she was just like mom and dad at the same time.
Okay.
As you can see in the story, there isn't a thing that she would say to Yrvin in terms of disciplining him or encouraging him and educating him about the facts of life. She doesn't make it some reference to what mom and dad or what mama or what papa would say, to reinforce. So she understands the kind of role that she's playing. Exactly. So that's why I think you are an immigrant and you're always going to be that way for the rest of your life.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're also a human being. Mm-hmm. The immigrant hat, okay, is invisible. It's in your heart. Probably it's in your speech. It's in your culture. Right. In the music you dance, you listen to. But at the end of the day, you're a productive citizen. At least you're a citizen trying to make a difference in society. It just so happened that many of us, we come to this country seeking a better life. Correct. And then sometimes we find that we're not so welcome after all,
Because why I asked you that question about the role of the sister, because, in Indian culture, like I can't speak much for the present generation, but I'm speaking, for us or our parents. Mm-hmm. The dependence on siblings, the support of the siblings, that is, very intrinsic in our culture. Because I personally know stories, of sisters who have gone out of their way, to finance the younger brother to study abroad and stuff like that. So, I could relate to that part, and she's such a loving character, because without Nana, I think Yrvin would have been totally lost. Don't you think so?
I know.
So, that is really a part in the novel that touches my heart, that every time she comes, and in the absence of the mother, she's the one who takes care of her younger brother and encourages her always has his back all the time.
And at the end, that Venko acknowledges the fact that she has always been right when she said, well, how in the world are you going to find your baby without finding Mika?
Exactly.
it was that question that he could never really get around this specific question.
Right. Okay, let me ask this question. Is Yrvin ruled by the heart or the head? Because I'm saying this, we see him deeply saddened by the fact that he's separated from his girlfriend. But that doesn't mean him just sit down and not doing anything and fine for her. He he tries his best to establish himself. And because there is a quote in the novel, let me see. Yes, I find it here. So when a relationship fails, I'm not going to mention the name of the character because for those who have not read, he said this: "It hurt me a lot, but Michaela's experience had helped me a great deal in overcoming yet another unexpected turn of events in a skin deep relationship." So,
Mhm.
this is all about human relationships. So, did the heartbreak toughen him, or he was always a man, who had the right balance?
Yes, I would say
I see
that.
both sides.
I would say that although he would not admit it,
Hmm.
but that's precisely what's going on with him because he's living with an unsettled heart. So that's why also his relationships, as he tries to move on with his life, could never really materialize the way he would wanted it. Obviously, human are human. Uh, when you're in a relationship with someone, if the feeling, the deep rooted feelings are mutual.
Hmm.
If it isn't, if they aren't, I would say, then you will see it right away. So obviously, searching for Mika prevent Irvin uh, to have a heart that would be wholeheartedly receptive to another person's love. You know. So even with the same situation with Judy, for example, when out of the blue he runs across Judy unexpectedly, and then believe it or not, so he tries that somehow maybe there's a change somehow, and just to find out that Judy understands, just like the other girl understands that as much as they really love him, there are circumstances in life that would you know uh, without a doubt prevented them from going full way with him, and he understands that because he knows that even if he doesn't want to acknowledge it, his heart beats for one person and one person only is me.
I understand. Okay, positivity and prayers. I was really, overwhelmed whenever I came, across these sections and saw how positive he was. And this is something from book one, starting from book one, where he once said that his mom had always said, Irvin's mom had said that nothing came easy in life. So even in the midst of the trials and tribulations, he was never pessimistic. He was always an optimist. And let me quote this line, which I really liked it. In his job search process, he was once treated badly by a lady in one of the offices while he was looking for a job.
Okay.
And this is what he said: "Certainly, I was not going to let an insecure, ill mannered lady break my will to succeed." So
Exactly.
that I think speaks volumes about positivity, and
Mhm.
blended with it is the theme of the importance of prayers, because several times in the book we see Nana praying, Irvin praying, and this line is repeated pretty often: "My prayers have been answered."
Mhm.
And this is what he says. When he was failing in his job search, he
Mhm.
said, "The search had produced no result, and we would go back into the tiny bedroom again for another round of night prayer." That was a time when his sister didn't have a job, she lost a job, and he was also finding for one. But what kept them going was their belief that someday their prayers will be answered.
Yes.
So, my question to you is it your Catholic faith, your faith in God, that has led you to mention prayers several times in the book? Because we all believe that life has its jolts, life has its bumps. It can never be easy, but some form of a divine intervention helps us smooth out things.
You know what? I grew up in a very religious family.
Mhm.
So in times of uncertainties and in the moment of hardships and facing trials and tribulations,
Right.
we seek for the higher being, this higher protection. So it was very important for me to have the protagonist to allow him to express his spiritual belief, and
Right.
especially when he was going through some major. I mean, the moment that he and Sister Nana, they were facing the ultimate crash in life,
Right.
but they kept on praying.
Yeah, because that is how we grew up too. Like my mother always taught us that you will be going through bad times in life, but then you have your faith in the divine, and I'm teaching the same thing to my son, that
Right,
there is some form of divine intervention, and that really helps us, that gives us the courage to move on in life.
exactly, exactly.
Let's come to the
And
yes.
as I go up and have creating my own family,
Mhm.
there are times you have to seek uh you know uh, when we have moment of uncertainties and we're going through hardships, and you have to seek that. It's the biggest reinforcement that somehow, somewhere out there, deliverance will come because you believe in it, and it always comes. So
Exactly.
yes,
Okay, when we talk about the immigrant story, with it comes the American dream. So that is what happens here too, because Irvin, he goes in search of the American dream, and he gets his green card. And this is what he says: "For the first time in my immigrant journey, I could safely say I had conquered the stubborn and treacherous heights to financial stability." He gets a BMW, and he gets a Bose audio system, and which reminds me, my family, we are all great fans of the Bose system. So,
right.
that kind of struck a chord with me. And then the beautiful decor in his apartment. So he's all well established. So basically, he has achieved the American dream. He has a wonderful job that pays him well. He has a comfortable life. But it did not bring in peace to him. So what the message that arises, like when he describes his feelings, he's upset that in spite of having everything, it's kind of, I don't have anything, because he thinks about Junior, he thinks about where his child might be, where is Michaela. So do you feel that, and this is especially a message for those who, the new generation, because their priorities are so different from ours.
Right,
What we seek, they seek something different.
right.
So materialism, is it everything, or definitely it is not?
Yes,
So do you want to convey that message in
exactly.
your
So money, wealth, it's not everything. It's
correct?
not everything at all in life. And I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, "Look, you know what? I've traveled a lot.
Mhm.
There's no such thing of paradise on earth.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
speak with the ordinary people. What I see, people are trying to go about their life,
Mhm.
with dignity, and try to make a difference in life. That's exactly what I see. you know. So I think the in the book itself, you can be eh, financially, very successful, but you remain also a very sad, even someone who's going into depression, really.
Right.
So, materialistic things, they're good, but they're not really what. Then it's not the whole thing.
Exactly. That is what I love in your book, because there is no moralizing. Nowhere in the book do you say, oh, this is good, this is bad. But in the form of a story, certain values emerge where, the reader gets a view that, there are lots of things in life, that make your life worth living and meaningful. And that is what I really like in your book, because there is so much to learn. But, there is no direct way that you have said to do this or do that. But, the everything comes out through the story.
Right.
That's what I really love in this book.
Okay.
Okay. Nostalgia. You write a lot about the Haitian culture in both books. You write about their music. You write about their food, rice and red beans, grouper, rice pudding, so much. And I would like to, yes. Okay, this is a very important part.
Okay.
Like a lady asking Mrs. Shriver, she asks him, Mr. Lacroix, is little Haiti helpful in keeping the nostalgia at bay? I'm sure it affects most Haitians in this town. And Yrvin replies, I'm sure it is. As for myself, I can speak with absolute certainty that the Haitian community has placed me a lot closer to home in many ways, including language, culture, and ethnicity. I am, reading these quotes because actually, right after I read your book, I came across a quote by Indian writer. His name is Amitava Kumar, and this is what he said: in the poetry of immigrants, nostalgia is as common as confetti at parades or platitudes at political conventions.
So,
And I could really relate to that because there is a book by Jhumpa Lahiri, The Namesake. If you have not read the book, I really recommend. And that is also all about nostalgia. Like, um, a woman, she gets married to a boy who is in the US, and how she comes here and how she thinks about, India, how things happen there. So, this is what I want to ask you too. Does it apply to your writing as well? That nostalgia is a very important part, because since you're writing a piece of immigrant fiction.
you could see the emotion behind those lines also, right?
Mhm.
So, which means this is something that is deeply rooted. There is a saying in Haitian literature.
Mhm.
It say that Haiti is just like the charming princess that will always be with you,
Mhm.
no matter where you are, no matter where you find yourself in the world.
Right.
Haiti will always be omnipresent in your life, in your heart, in your food, in your culture, and your thought process. And it is true because I live it every day.
I understand. You mentioned the hibiscus flower, and I was just looking through, and it says that it is the unofficial flower of Haiti. But does it have any special significance in your culture? Because you mentioned the hibiscus flower in both of your books.
When I was a kid,
Uh huh.
my mother used to have a lot of them, and because my mom really, she loved flowers,
Okay.
in particular hibiscus, but in Haiti they call it chou black.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the name of it. They use it for tea. If you have a cold or something, they would take the flower. I don't know why, don't ask me why, but they would do that. Old folks, they have their own ways, you know, and somehow the kids get better.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's also beautiful for decorating the house, beautiful for, a flower, I would say shrub around the house, if you want to embellish it to, you know what that means. So I always have shoe black or hibiscuses in my house because
Okay.
they also multicolor. I have them too. And since also they just like morning glory, the flowers open up in the morning, and they would die in the afternoon. And then also new buds will blossom and open again, in the morning. So I really love it. So that's why I always mention hibiscus is
Okay, because
my story.
I found it very interesting because that is also a sacred flower in our culture, because what they do is that they get the flowers together and they make a garland out of it, and they use it for religious purposes when we have religious ceremonies. So, whenever I got that name, it struck me. I was also talking to my son the other day. I said, see, he mentions this flower quite often. And what about rice pudding? That is all over
Ah,
the book. And
this
I
is
think
the
I
Haitian
asked you
signature.
once earlier.
It's the signature of Haitian desserts. Really.
Oh, okay.
Since I was a kid,
Uh-huh.
always have that rice pudding. Now, they make it, it depends of where you are, different part of the country. They put raisins in it too.
Oh, we do that too.
You do that too. Okay.
Yes,
And then they can
because
sprinkle a little bit of vanilla in there, So to spice, I mean, to tease the taste as
okay.
Italian. I love it. And when my wife wants to make me happy, she knows what kind of dessert
Oh,
that she would do. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm from the northeastern part of India, and what we do for the rice pudding is that they would boil the milk and then put a handful of rice and let it cook till the rice is really soft, and then you put dry fruits like raisins and nuts. And so rice pudding, yes, we eat that a lot too. So I
Okay.
was surprised. I said, we are in two different parts of the
And
world,
it's so
but there
tasty.
are certain similarities. After all, I think it's just one mankind. That's what we say.
I remember back in 2004 when I took my daughter to Paris for the first
Uh-huh.
time.
Okay.
And then we were at the hotel,
Mhm.
and then she wasn't feeling well. But I know that every time she does not feel well, so mom always makes rice pudding, and she gets back on her feet immediately. So I asked those people. I called the restaurant down there, and I said, do you have rice pudding? Yeah, they said, no, we don't make rice pudding. It's not in the menu. I said, but I need rice pudding right now. They said, why? Because my daughter's not feeling well. And the gentleman was talking to me on the phone. He was laughing. So I said, so how do you make it? So I pretty much dictate how he's supposed to do it.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah, and they do it. They bring it. So she eats the rice pudding and she becomes immediately re-energized, agitated. I want to go down to Paris and, downtown and have fun. And I remember that, to see that much power that rice pudding really has in the
It's
Haitian
yeah,
mind.
it's some sort of a comfort food, I would say, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I love that.
Okay. Something that is prominent in your book is when you talk three times in the book, in fact, about the machismo culture. Let's just say, for a Haitian man who was raised in a machismo culture, I had an unusual fondness for cooking. Then you say, the last thing I wanted was for her to realize how vulnerable I was as a man raised in the Caribbean machismo. And finally, you also refer to when Winkle talks about his father like telling stories about his machismo. So could you please shed some light on that? It so prominent in the Haitian culture?
Yeah, this is something that is embedded in the Haitian culture. Men, really, Haitian men, very
Uh-huh.
macho. So they tend to be, they're not interested in sharing the role of, household responsibilities. They want
Okay.
to be the king. They the kings, and then there's no queen really in the sense, there might be something of so someone of a lesser position as a queen. So I mean, it should never be, I would say, objected unless the reason for that objection has to be completely blatant or apparent, I would say. So a macho man, that's what he does. he wants to make sure that he's respected at all levels, even when he's wrong, So, and that comes with not having to go to the kitchen and wash the dishes, and not interested in helping with the household cleaning,
Right.
not interested in fixing the bed. You see what I mean? These are the type of things that growing up, yeah, I'm accustomed to this. But when I look back and I know my culture, so macho men, that's what they do. They rule. They don't really share. They rule.
Okay.
So it was a kind of surprise for the protagonist, who's raised in a macho culture,
right?
Seem to have no problem, doing, accommodate with this type of living, cleaning, cooking, and doing all kinds of stuff.
But Winkle loved cooking.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and especially when Nana's there,
Right,
wants to make sure that he does it exactly the way she wants him to do it.
Exactly. Okay, Winkle, he is a Haitian. Then we have Michaela, who is a mixed race girl of Dominican origin. We have Pedro, Winkle's friend, who is a Latino married to a Chinese. And then when Winkle goes to France, he has, a friend, the Ahmed, the taxi driver, who helps him a lot in France. So, in fact, you try to bring in people, from different countries.
Yeah.
And I have a question. You have written extensively on multiculturalism. So did you want to bring in that concept in your story as well?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I did when I was doing my doctorate degree. My dissertation was centered around uh, multiculturalism.
Okay.
So I know the complexity of life. I know the multi layers of cross-cultural awareness and what it can bring to a multi-ethnic or multicultural society. So what I really did in the story, everywhere the protagonist goes, is to present somehow the immigrant experience. You could see Ahmed, the taxi driver.
Right.
Although he was born and raised in France, but also his parents are immigrants. He can speak the language. He understands what it means to be discriminated against also, to go through hardship in society. So it's important for me to keep the theme, as the protagonist goes through life.
Correct.
Even at the high-end party at the Las Olas, the immigrant question really was raised. Having the guy giving such an important speech to very wealthy people, but yet, his Haitianism follows him, quite frankly. So, it's important for me as an immigrant because my whole life, of course, I never intended to come to the United States and live in the fringe of society. So I did the best I could to live a productive life. And I know my community is not equipped as much to accommodate all the young people, which is one of the references also that I make in the story. Young, new generations of Haitian Americans, growing up, they have to move elsewhere, because the community does not provide them in life, the opportunities that it would require for them to stay and live in the community as Haitian Americans. So it's a dilemma, it's a struggle from within. You want to stay, you understand who you are, but understand at the same talking you're a human being, so you have to move on with your life.
Correct. And you have painted the character of Vinko so well. Like he is such a nice, kind man. And I like this part when, before leaving France, he was so grateful to the taxi driver Ahmed for helping him. And this is what he says: he and I exchanged phone numbers in the hope of meeting again someday. I really love that part. That he was so grateful to that man for helping him out.
Mm.
There is actually a quote that while talking about multiculturalism, I want to share that, everything amounts to the fact that, we need to think about humanity in the concept of one world. And this is a quote I wanted to share with you from a British Algerian author, Mulu Benzari. And this is what he says: one world is not abolishing frontiers, which would lead to a surge in migration, create tension, and destabilize life on our planet. One world is rather abolishing the concept of borders in people's minds and replacing devotion to individual nations with belief in one united world, home to one race, that is the human race.
Beautiful. Well said.
And I really, where I like this quote. It was some time back when I came across this quote, and when I was reading your book, I had in mind. I said, I should bring this up to you. I know you'll love it because this so much is in line with the concept that you have introduced in your book. Okay, Dr. Isma, as we near the end of this episode of the conversation, I want to do something fun and interesting.
Okay.
And I have captioned it as Knowing Dr. Isma. I will be asking you a set of 5 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Yes, and you will not have much time to think.
Okay.
So whatever comes to your mind, straight from the heart. Okay, the first question: your favorite cuisine besides Haitian?
It's Italian.
Okay, no wonder Winko cooks spaghetti and yeah, now I get it. Okay, next question: a book you love and can read any number of times?
100 Years of Solitude by Garcia Marquez.
Okay. A place or a country you have not visited and would want to?
That's so many of them. It's so tough, but I would say India.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Next, you are a writer. Describe writing in 3 words, 3 adjectives. How would you describe writing? You're a writer.
Descriptive. Soulful.
Okay.
And discipline.
Awesome. Okay, last question. If you were given a magic wand and would like to change the world, what would you like to do?
I would immediately try to eliminate injustice and make social justice the core of our world. And of course, with that comes the elimination of exploitation and also aspirations that sometimes can trigger into violent reactions. So I would, with the magic wand, bring justice to the world in an instant. So with that, brotherly love, sisterly love, will be the norm, not just sometimes mere reality. Okay. That's what I would do with the wand.
So these are brilliant answers, and your score is A+ with 100. So,
I thought I failed.
no, You just passed with flying colors. And on that note, we would like to wrap up the conversation. And thank you so much for giving me your time. It was wonderful talking to you as always. And I loved our chat. And for viewers, I would like to request you to read Last Spring Was Bittersweet. It is a wonderful book. And
There
if
you
you have
go.
not
It's
read,
right
yes,
here.
that is the book.
Yeah, last
And
spring.
actually, if you have not read book one, I recommend that you read both the books. They are just awesome. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
Dr. Isma, for this episode of the conversation. And I enjoyed being the host this time. And you don't need to tell me now. You can, send me my score later, how well I did.
It's always A plus too. You know,
Thank you so much.
it's always a pleasure to have that chat, and I look forward to it. Perhaps maybe when the next book is out, we'll do it again. All we have to do is ask
Absolutely.
God to keep uh, to make sure that we're still healthy and our thought process remain intact as we get older. That can be compromised.
Right.
So we'll do it again.
Sure. Thank you so much. So are you planning to write is something already on your
uh,
plan?
I have several projects, but not on Bittersweet. I tend to close to story, and move on because I have other projects that I have to
Correct.
yeah, to focus on. Although people ask me, "Oh, we need book three," but it's
Mm-hmm.
not a miniseries. I can't really I just don't know how to. So yeah, yeah.
But
But whatever book that's published, I know you and I can still sit down and talk about it.
right. And I thoroughly enjoyed book two because, it was what I kind of wanted to happen. I wanted to end that way. So not giving it was
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay.
Okay,
All
so thank you
right.
so much, and you have a wonderful weekend ahead.
You too. You do the same.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Isma.